just answering questions with waptek, a couple of prefacings and or disclaimers. Number one, I'm going to be reading virtually all of this from accepted medical literature from CDC website. Number two, YouTube will ignore that because they have a listing that says if I say something, even if the CDC agrees with it, or if I touch on the subject, they're going to flag my video. Next, the video will be eventually redacted and censored in text only because that will keep them from doing it as often. Next, previous video I have up, actually this has happened before, I did in response to comments and questions, and also did in response to facts in the world, and also did in response to people taunting me in the comment sections on all three of my current channels that I can communicate with, and in real life. If you were offended by it, I'm not apologizing if you were offended. I'm apologizing directly for offending you because you are not the target of my ire. No, I'm not bullshitting or backpedaling here. I'm sorry. Next, some people I give a damn about were insulted by me in the past and maybe even currently. It's not you. Here we go. This will answer all the questions that I'm going to be reading back here. These are questions, statements, comments, etc. A booster shot increases antibody production in a person who's already been vaccinated, depending on what you're talking about, including many other things, by anywhere from 5, 10, or 20 times what it was before, or even higher. And in the case of the human body, with the current pandemic problem, it's 25 times or more. This prevents serious illness 25 or 15 times more often, and death 25 or 15 times more often, depending on the ratio, depending on a bunch of variables that we can't calculate. Let's skip it. It also has the effect of reducing the chain of transmission, interrupting it, because if the disease is fought by your body rapidly, it doesn't have enough time to form copies, which necessarily requires that it infect you. It's not really as effective at preventing transmission as other more simple methods that people would have less of a problem with. And now the secret reason you're being asked to do the boosters. Number one, the vaccine was supposed to work for the period of time it needed to, but we didn't know how well it would work. We now know. Two, they absolutely did not think the disease would last long as it did. And they're doing a booster because it's taking too long. Next, your likelihood of dying from COVID-19 is anywhere from 1 to 2%, all the way up to 5 or 10%, depending on what time during the disease and what type of surge you're dealing with. The mortality rate and illness rate drop by 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 if you're vaccinated, which means it's only as bad as a flu without you being vaccinated. And if you get the booster, it's as low a likelihood as getting an actual flu vaccine, which everybody's noticed. Most people are reluctant to get flu vaccines. I spent years not getting flu vaccines. Why? I didn't want to. I didn't like getting needles stuck in me. Public disclosure, I wasn't going to get vaccinated originally. Then I had to have my teeth pulled and realized I wasn't able to afford dental work before, and that's the reason I was in danger of having my jaw ripped out and rebuilt. They only had to do a little rebuild. And the upper jaw almost killed me. This doesn't cost me anything, and it's cheap insurance so that I don't die from a disease that kills 1 to 2% of the people it infects. And now the real reason you're having to do the boosters. Not just because it's taking longer, but the cause of it. Or maybe not. Enough people, this is actually a report you're going to hear about in a while, refuse to wear a fucking mask that the only way to stop the spread without literally stapling this to idiots' faces is for everybody else to do the work that they're refusing to do. They're not keeping up their end. And nobody in this administration wants to say that. Then again, the Biden administration is the one that said, oh, everybody who's vaccinated can go without a mask. That was a carrot and stick thing. He shouldn't have done it. He should have immediately been told no. That was dumb. Yes, Biden made a mistake. Trump made a mistake by claiming it would go away magically. Biden made a mistake by saying something that's scientifically stupid. No, that's not medical misinformation. The booster shot makes it to where it's as deadly as a head cold instead of as deadly as the flu. Getting the vaccine in the first place makes it about as deadly as the flu, which is still bad. Not doing either of them and not wearing a mask means you're just basically begging to die. You're literally talking about decimation almost. And more importantly, the people who are doing it are not rational, so you can't talk them into being rational about it. And evaluating safety issues here aren't working. And yes, your government, no matter where you are, isn't telling you the reason why we keep having to do booster shots. Because the damn thing isn't going away and it's changing. And I'm sorry to be the person who has to explain that. And yes, a few, very few, medical professionals are explaining it very clearly. And yes, I did a video talking about the conclusion that Omicron would make us more resistant to Delta being a bad study. It is a bad study. I still hope and believe that it will turn out to be true, but that particular study isn't good enough. We need another one. But the study's still not good enough. When there were only 17 million doses out, a certain number of adverse events or reactions or cases happened. And it was a certain number. After filtering out the ones that turned out to be erroneous, or a person dropped the subject because they really weren't ill, or people who admitted that they were trying to get insurance money or something, it worked out that that number hasn't changed much. And it's about 1,549 people. Period. Full stop. When it was 17 million doses. And it's still that number, or very close to it. That's the max unconfirmed caused by vaccine claims. This is the adverse event reporting system. It doesn't judge whether you're telling the truth, or more accurately, if it's really the cause. It's saying there's that many complaints. And they've gone through a bunch of the complaints, and the number hasn't really changed. At first, people had negative reactions, and the numbers haven't changed much. That was when we only had 17 million doses out. That's a pretty good sample. That's a 1 in 11,000 chance of getting an injury-ish. And let's assume they were completely accurate. It's 1 in 11,000 chance. That's not zero. The most common thing was at 11,024 cases, myocarditis and pericarditis. It's a pretty serious thing. 283 cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome, which can be a problem, obviously. I want to read about it. 57 thrombocytopenia syndrome cases. And then the one that easily a lot of you will recognize when I say it, 85 cases of anaphylaxis that can lead to death. But out of 17 million doses, 0 deaths happened. And in a previous video I said, I can't find anybody who's honestly telling me the real number of people who have died that can even fantasize be associated. Now again, I'm repeating this. I'm reading from the CDC website. After 496 million doses, the CDC has decided that 9 deaths could potentially, maybe kind of sort of be caused by the vaccination if you were to push it that way. And again, they don't judge. They just those are the reported cases that are not easily dismissed. The others were obviously not true, including a couple of cases of people dying from car wrecks. It had nothing to do with the vaccine. But you can try to make it that way. A court case or a lawyer might have done that. That's 1 in 55 million chance of death, maybe. And that's pushing it, and it's 9 cases. Those are real numbers. That's what the CDC says. YouTube and Google will flag me if I say you do need to wear a mask after you've been vaccinated, because you do. We know that. But they'll say it's not true because Biden said otherwise. But then again, they got mad at you for saying what Trump was saying because Trump was bullshitting. Both of them are. Wear your mask. The reason for the vaccines and the boosters are different. The booster shots are being done mostly because too many people have decided to make it their fucking life's work to do the things they're told will spread it. That's the truth. And it's taking longer, maybe because of them or maybe not. And again, it's a lot longer than anybody anticipated, so we have to do booster shots. The boosters provide enough protection that your likelihood of getting sick is so low that the President of the United States dead-ass told people that if you're vaccinated, you don't need a mask when you do. Because he's dumb. Let's move on. As of today, again, after almost 50 million doses, 9 people died in a way that they're willing to say maybe could have been caused by it. if you're taking that as a giant red flag. Next, sudden cardiac death during exercise, footballers collapsing, debunked. Anti-vax people will look at the total reporting for people who had bad reactions to tetanus shots during 2019 and 2020, and yes, in 2019, and yes, they did cite that, and decide those were people who died, and they all died, and it was 10,000 of them. Well, they also do the same thing with footballers, including footballers that died, again, in a car wreck in a couple of cases, another person dropping dead by shooting himself, but that was somehow associated with a vaccine. The rest of the cases are caused by something much more mundane. People in sports in high school, college, and professional sports pass out all the damn time. They're not reported because the organization isn't legally compelled to until, coincidentally, about 2018, 2019, depending on which one. They're required by law to do it, or they don't have medical coverage or insurance. Insurance companies got mad. Bunch of court cases. You might have heard about them. People dropping dead during practice before COVID-19 came out. And a pandemic disrupts people being able to do normal business like going to school, high school, college, or work in professional sports, which means instead of a nice regular training program, they get irregular, and if you don't know why you don't want to do that, it can be lethal if you don't regularly train and keep your body perfect. Some of these people are doing this to make a living, and they weren't able to. They literally couldn't keep regular, and some of them got sick. And by population of people in sports, no matter which one, the death rate is lower and the incidence of passing out on the field is lower. But the reporting is up because they're required to do it, because now it's doubly important because it's during a pandemic and they had to report it. And again, anti-vaxxers were counting people who literally shot themselves as being deaths caused by COVID-19 vaccines somehow. Why did I pass out after getting my first shot of anything, excluding B12? I passed out the second time I got a vaccine. Arnold Schwarzenegger has stated for the fact at one point that he got passed out after his second or third vitamin shot. B12 will make you pass out. It's usually caused by anxiety. You may not realize you have an anxiety reaction. After getting my teeth redone repeatedly, 3 sessions with injections, I think it's actually 4 now, I no longer care about getting an injection in the arm. But before this happened, I was considering not getting vaccinated, and I admit it, until some people died, and I decided I'm going to get the vaccine as soon as it's available, or I wouldn't have done it. And yes, on the second time I got a vaccination, it was oddly enough against tetanus. I passed out immediately. Every other time, no. Until I got, yes, a B12 shot, and another time I had a rabies shot. It's to prevent me from getting rabies. We wasn't rabid at the time. I'm currently rabid. But I did pass out. If you pass out during an injection, it's because of an ingredient in it, maybe not even what it's supposed to be, a vaccine for, or it could just be nerves. It could be anything. Anything that causes a disruption in your body, especially something you're not sensing, will cause you to faint. People don't faint expecting it most of the time. Ask a doctor. And again, Arnold Schwarzenegger passed out during an injection, so you may be just a tough guy and not know it. And there's always the joke about the Marines showing up on day one passing out from the vitamin shot. That's why that joke is in the movie Winter Soldier, when it's like, oh, that wasn't bad. Oh, that was the vitamin shot. Yeah, literally the joke they were doing, they didn't tell you, is the vitamin shot would make you pass out before you got any of the others, including the peanut butter one, but we won't talk about that terror. You're usually pretty good at this. Can you send a link to peer-reviewed study talking about how vaccines are safe and effective? The number of dead is 9 maximum, and that's if you lie to yourself about it absolutely having to be from the vaccine. The number of people who've died from the disease is ridiculously high. The number of people, the reduction in disease-caused death is massive. My kid never collapsed before he did after he got the shot. Ask Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've noticed that there's a bizarre issue with people passing out or dying. I believe it's associated with a vaccine. It's a propaganda video. It's never been true. You're less likely now after the disease came through and after we went into lockdown. But some of the cases were caused by literally people not training regularly enough, and they got out of rhythm and it hurt them. And they said so in interviews later, the ones that didn't die. And again, the propagandists were citing sources that listed people who'd committed suicide. Check your sources, and if they won't let you check them, don't believe them. I'm going to provide all the links I can. Hopefully I don't get flagged for this. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.